It's that astrology is meant to be explored. It's not meant to be something that dictates us. So don't live your life based around your astrology. Live your astrology based around your life and come up with your own experiences and interpretations of what these energies mean and how they manifest to you. I feel like that's in a lot of ways a daily practice, because as much love is an eminence, it's a choice which polarity you want to align yourself with at any time. So, well, first, just to realize everything is energy, and that chaos and order are natural polarities that exist already in this world. That is to say, there are elements of deconstruction that need to occur in order for new construction to occur. And with that being said, I would also emphasize that joy and pain are built of the same blocks. It's just how they are constructed that elicits the experience of them.
May you always turn towards love. Hi Nick, welcome to Turn Towards Love. I ask the same two questions at the start of every podcast. And the first question is, what does love mean to you?
To me, love is like an emanation of oneself. It's an ability to connect to a deeper level of the fabric that binds us all, and it can be expressed in so many different ways, but I believe it's like a core essence and eminence that would make us who we are.
Absolutely. Really does. And when was the last time that you turned towards love instead of fear, and how did that impact you?
I feel like that's in a lot of ways a daily practice, because as much love is an eminence, it's a choice which polarity you want to align yourself with at any time. So I feel like there are instances of greater magnitude in which you have to choose love in more difficult ways. There might be times when you do succumb to choosing fear, but although it might sound cliche, I feel like choosing love is a daily practice for me and something that I always want to go deeper into.
That's so lovely. It really is. And so we met on the Deborah Silverman Applied Astrology course, and you are my mentor. And I'm grateful for you to be on here right now. I'm so excited. I love the way that you, I guess, the way that you deliver your classes through combining the astrology and psychology, and like the way that like the acknowledgement I felt during the class from, I guess, like your intuition and the way you guide your intuition to help others specifically. It really helps you to feel like heard and seen, you know, and it just makes the whole experience deeper, and I guess like brings the chart of the astrology like more dynamic. And so I'm so interested in how it all started for you, where astrology first came into your life, and your journey up until now, really.
Well, it goes back quite a while. So it initially started with Deborah Silverman, who was one of my mom's friends. And when I was about 16 years old, I was going through a very dark period in my life, just butting into the whole energy of relationships and sexuality, butting into my relationship with drugs and addiction, and just rebellion in its entirety. This was my teenage years. So I was going through this really dark time, and my mom said, I'm going to get you an astrology reading with this lady. And I was like, I don't want to do an astrology reading with this lady. And she's like, I already paid for it, and she's already on the phone, so you just got to talk to her. And I was like, fine. So I pick up the phone, and it's Deborah. And so I just lied. Every word that I said was a lie. I just wanted to see what this person was all about. And time and time and time again, she kept hitting the nail on the head in these ways that were so unique to me and my soul. that no one could have known that, especially not a stranger on the phone. And that perked my curiosity. How does
Mm.
this person know me so intimately when we've never even met? And so I started to kind of consider that there might be more to this than I thought. Maybe a year or so later, my mom started to study astrology with her flashcards. And so I would
Cool.
help her study with her flashcards as like a little practice. And I would be like, well, what's the 10th sign? And she'd be like, I'd be like, how do you not know this? It's Capricorn, it's ruled by Saturn. And she's like, how do you know this?
You're
Good
like,
point.
nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I realized very quickly that I was taking to it effortlessly. It was almost more of a remembrance than it was a learning. And I started to become insatiable on wanting to go deeper into this web that seems to be infinite. And in the process of doing so, collecting people's charts, reading books, just studying the actual practice of it in my day to day life, it started to unfold deeper and deeper and deeper. By the time I was 18, 19 years old, I was doing readings for people with astrology, with human design, and I was seeing that it had a big impact, but I didn't want to charge people for it. I'm a man, I go to work, I work with tools, I didn't want to like go into the emotional side of things, but people started to offer me money. People started to insist that I be paid for it. So started to lean into it a little bit more. And that was really where things started to kick off in a pretty significant way, which then
Mm.
carried me through a lot of different incarnations of it, of coming into it, seeing my life thrive, coming out of it, seeing my life fall apart. And it seemed to be a common denominator that whenever I was aligned with faith and studying the astrology, things were thriving. And anytime I got ambivalent and rejected it from my life, everything crashed and burned. And after doing that countless times, I figured I should just embrace it.
Yeah. That's something that I feel like you showed in your class as well. It was showing us how to have faith and trust in the chart, but in life as well. It's just like, it's okay where you are right now, and it's okay to shift from one, I guess, polarity to another, because you'll understand that what's right in the end. You'll always get back on track. And that's why I use like the love and fear, because for me, like when I went into fear, I was like, it all goes wrong, but when I go, oh no, I need to realign back to what would my heart do? How would I speak and listen and guide through my heart? And then all the possibilities open then. And so I just find that that's exactly why I created this podcast. So yeah, it's beautiful. Anyway.
Well, I'm grateful for that because it does give a platform for this to unfold and for us to explore ourselves in shared introspection. And that's
Mm,
the thing that I found the most significant about the astrology is it's not absolute gospel, there's always free will, there's always, the changes of timelines and things and actions having a cause and effect in our life, but it's all
yeah.
being informed by the cycles of these planets. So once it started to pick up a lot of momentum for me, I ended up going on a journey in Sedona with someone who's become a dear friend of mine now. Her name's Carissa Schumacher. And
Mm-hmm.
I offered my chart to the medicine wheel and kind of committed to this being a path for me. And things really started to pick up momentum at that point. Shortly after, I would say maybe a year or two after, I get a message from Deborah Silverman's assistant, and she was like, hey, do you want to come and teach for this astrology school that Deborah is launching? And I was like, no, I don't. And then my girlfriend at the time was like, Nik, how could you turn down an opportunity like this? Like, this is so amazing. Like, this is what you've been working for. And I'm like, it's really not. Like, I'm already doing readings, working out of metaphysical shops, doing trade shows. I already have other jobs. Like, I don't have time for this. But then I got another message from Deborah's assistant and another message from Deborah's assistant on all these different
Ah.
platforms. And finally, I was like, you know what? All right, I'm going to go for it. And so I started teaching for Deborah Silverman Astrology in 2016, and I've been teaching for it ever since.
Oh wow. Well, I'm glad you did.
Me
I'm
too.
really glad you did. Yeah. What a journey. And So just briefly, you said that you did human design as well. Is that alongside it?
Yeah,
What
astrology and
is
human
human design?
design, they're built of similar bones. So human design is a system that was developed based on the astrology system, the chakra system, the Kabbalistic tree of life, the I
Mm-hmm.
Ching. It has all
Mm-hmm.
of these different interlocking platforms that create a kind of a cohesive format for understanding human nature on a more mechanical level. So I see astrology as very much about cycles of timing, very much about how your character is expressed, and it seems to be a lot more interpretive. That is to say, there is an art to reading an astrology chart because you'll get
Mm-hmm.
readings from different people reading different charts, and they'll all have these common threads, but they'll be interpreted based on the person's experience, perspective, artistry, XYZ. Now, human design is a lot more mechanical. It's a lot more fundamental in that it's more black and white. It's about where are your input centers, what are your output centers, what is consistent for you, what is not. How do you make decisions in this life? How does your aura and your circuitry interact with others in your life and your community? So I love putting them in conjunction with one another because the astrology tells me the cycles you're in and how your character is expressed. The human design shows me what is defined and undefined for you, what parts of yourself can you rely on, and what circuitry are you contributing to the collective, and what is the collective contributing to you. I find that if I were to make it more metaphorical, human design is like if I were to be drawing a portrait, it's like penciling in where are the eyes, where are the nose, where's the shape of the jaw. The astrology is the paint, like what color is the skin, what color are the eyes, how are the shades. I feel like in order to paint a really clear picture, they work better hand in hand for me.
I love the way you've described that. It makes total sense because you've got that kind of logic and the creativity kind of mixed together. Or the yeah, that's beautiful. And now it does because when you lead a class, I can see how it's led with both of those aspects. Firstly, what type of astrology do you do? So, so for people that there are different types of astrology. So just to kind of like clarify that for anybody that's listening.
Yeah, I'm personally versed in tropical astrology, also known often as Western astrology, and there are different house systems that people utilize as well. I use the Placidus house system just because I
Mm-hmm.
find it adds more nuance and variety to the way that people's personalities are expressed or manifested. But at the end of the day, all systems of astrology have their accuracy and validity because it is really about the interpretation more than anything. So,
Yeah.
with that being said, if someone wants me to read Whole House, someone wants me to read Sidereal, I can do that. I just personally prefer tropical Placidus astrology because it's what my background is in, and to me, I just find it to be the most resonant to me.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. It's, I think I get asked, what type of astrology and what does it all mean because they're so different. But I think they all they all come hand in hand, but maybe just tell you a different part of the story, maybe. Like maybe you can get a bit of an image of the future or of your personality or of here and now or of maybe the past or past lives or something. So there are many areas, but thanks for saying that. And I wanted to ask you, I guess, like, what does astrology mean to you? And like, yeah, what's like the most significant thing you feel like has changed within you from knowing astrology
Well, it's hard
or
to
knowing your chart? Yeah.
it's hard to take it all and distill it so simply, but to my best effort, I see astrology as a psychological consistency for measuring human growth, psychology, and evolution. So basically, that is to say that we're all living under the clockwork of the planets. And these planets are definable metrics that we can use to understand how humans move through time in this realm. Now, we're born at a certain time on a certain place to get this specific energetic imprint. And that's where the more esoteric side comes in, where each of the individual planets represent a component of our personality. An example would be the moon representing our emotional body, or Mercury representing our thoughts and communication. But as we move through life with this energetic imprint, as the planets continue to spin, the position in which we oriented this specific imprint is going to influence us in certain ways at certain times that are different from other people. So we can understand that our cycles might be nuanced and different than what other people are going through. And using the language of geometry, you might be going through a really difficult transit in this period of your evolution, but based on the geometry of the planets in your chart compared to mine, I might be going through a really smooth and easy time
Yeah.
just based on how that geometry is affecting us individually. So I see that as a good way of indicating how we are personally going through these cycles and how we are being affected by time. But on the other side of that, there are certain consistencies that we can use that apply to everyone. The most
Mhm.
popular, I would say, is probably Saturn. People talk about 7 year itches. They talk about their Saturn return. That's very much hit mainstream popular culture as astrology has evolved into the mainstream. And that is basically to say that no matter where in the world you're born, what year you're born, what race you are, XYZ, it's going to take about 28 or 30 years for Saturn to go all the way around for everybody. And that means that it's a great equalizer that everyone between the ages of 28 and 30 goes through a coming of age process. And that's another reason that I love the astrology, because it not only highlights how we're all affected individually by the movement of time, but how we are all basing our life cycle on these celestial cycles and the influences of them. And we can use those as kind of a measurement to understand that.
Wow. That was so beautifully said. And so, for everyone, what is the Saturn return, and how can we describe Saturn, I guess, to help give a bit of context for that?
In astrology, Saturn generally represents elements of maturity or restriction that we have to come to terms with in ourselves in order to really become fully realized. And what I mean by fully realized is that there are certain parts of ourself that might be uncomfortable or require a bit of growth and adaptation, but they are non-negotiable for our evolution, for our ability to grow into ourselves. So people talk about this term 7 year itch. That's basically, give or take, every 7 years, Saturn comes into what's called a square of itself. That means it's creating a sort of a tension or a need for compromise between the restrictions and aspects of wisdom we were born with and how the evolution of that is occurring in our life. So if you think about this in terms of human nature, when you're 7 years old, you kind of start to get a personality, right? You're starting grade school, you have a kind of a deeper sense of individuality, but you're still not fully mature. You haven't really fully realized yourself. Then we go forwards to 14. Well, now you're a teenager. Now you really think you've got it all figured out. You have an even more defined personality, but you still aren't fully actualized as yourself either. There's still a long way to go in this. Come forward again to about 21 years old. Okay, now I feel like I'm becoming an adult. I'm not a kid anymore, but I'm not an elder either. And you're starting to kind of solidify more deeper aspects of yourself and your maturity. And then it comes full circle to the Saturn return, which, as I mentioned, happens between the ages of 28 and 30. And that's when it's really time to grow up. That's when you have received what I call your fourth mark of maturity, in which this full cycle of maturity has happened, and you now have certain aspects of yourself that you really have to come to terms with and grow into. And if these aspects of yourself, as described by these influences of your chart, are something you've embraced, generally this can be a very uplifting time where you really feel you've settled into yourself. But if you have been neglecting maybe these more challenging or, matured aspects of you, you'll get a wake-up call, and it'll happen very viscerally. You know, people go through huge changes at this time in their life. So I'm not going to say it's a good or a bad. I don't think anything is good or bad, but I believe it can be either easy or challenging depending on how honest you've been with yourself and the parts of you that you have to accept that might not always be so comfortable.
Oof, I like that. I like the way you said it, you know, how honest you've been with yourself, because it super highlights that during that time. And yeah, my Saturn return literally changed the direction of my entire life. It's just like uprooted me. And in every way, mentally, physically, emotionally, you name it. I was just like in my health and in my life in general. And yeah, heartbreak, but then it's always picking yourself up, and looking towards the challenges as that opportunity for growth. Like pain is like your teacher in a way. So it's like that. That's the way I look at it, to know and navigate myself through those times. But yeah, so for anyone around that age, just look out for that, I guess, and contact Nik. He can help you through this.
Absolutely. But it also
sure.
doesn't stop there. It doesn't end at 30 years old. Of course, continuing forward every 7 years, you'll continue to go through these marks of maturity, these 7-year itches, as we call them. And so, really, at the core of it all, what's most important is that we have to be real with ourselves. We have to embrace maturity. We have to embrace aspects of ourselves that we might not want to place front and center in the spotlight, but know are a critical component of our growth and evolution. And life will continue to knock on your door in that way. You can't truly resist or avoid your own growth and maturity. I mean, you're going to continue to age and evolve as time goes on. So I believe this to be something that we can all lean into. And there are multiple different ways we can learn to embrace maturity and accept deeper truths about ourselves. To me, astrology just really paints a clear picture, and I find it to be really constructive in that way.
Me too. I have 5 planets in Capricorn, so with that, Saturn energy is really intense in my chart, and I deeply appreciate it for the incredible lessons in very specific area as well. So yeah, I appreciate that energy, and I think when we start to embrace that, it does begin to smooth out rather than that pushback of resistance, I guess. So thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask as well, because there are still skeptics out there in the world. And, you know, for the average person that really doesn't know anything about astrology and, you know, has the questions or has the challenges in the believing or in, you know, wanting to go there, I guess, like maybe like you at the beginning of that journey, I'm interested into what you would have said to yourself back then, and would you say the same to the skeptics out there?
Well, I just want to emphasize in advance that I'm always a skeptic and
Yeah.
will always be a skeptic of anything in life, especially astrology. But as a proper skeptic, if you give something a chance with a sort of a skeptical criticism and it continues to prove itself time and time and time and time again, then I'm inclined to have to believe in it because I'm seeing this thing prove itself. I'm seeing confirmation biases. I'm witnessing the accuracy of something. So I think it's good to be skeptical and discerning of things, to not alter your viewpoint or perspectives on life in a way that may be non-constructive for you. But with that being said, being a skeptic is not the same as being in denial. And in order to see the benefits of something like astrology, you have to be open-minded, at least to some extent, to allow that process of skepticism to unfold. in a way that allows you to be critical, but also in a way that allows it to prove itself to you. So on one hand, I would say that there's more than just the newspaper zodiac descriptions, that it is a lot more of a deeper art form than that, and that there are, as you mentioned earlier, many different forms of astrology, some being heavily esoteric and interpretive, and some being very scientific in their nature, very calculated. So if I were to go back then, I would probably say the same thing I do now, like just watch. Like just watch and see, and be open to perspectives that are going to help you grow, perspectives that are going to help you learn, and recognize that this might not have to be something that you live your life by, but it can certainly help give you perspectives and information that could really help you thrive and see things in a new way. So with any esoteric art or any spiritual lens, that's exactly what it is just a lens in which you're able to interpret and see life through. And you can use the lens of astrology the same way you would use the lens of science or the lens of psychology. It's just basically creating a framework for perspective if you are open to it.
Yes, I love that. It's that openness is the most important thing. Really, truly believe that just having that open heart and that open mind to accept even the things that we may see as, you know, as different to us or outside of our comfort zone. Just be open to, there is a different perspective, and you know, what could that bring to me? And then I find that the universe just brings us those things to help us along our way then. So with you mentioning about the, you know, the newspaper and the I used to go to the back of the newspaper. I remember so young, I would be so excited for my granddad or to get the newspaper so I could go to the back and look at what my astrology said, you know, and but as we know, it's so much more dynamic in nature, and it is more complex, and it's there's a lot more to us, obviously, than our sun sign. So could you please explain what, I guess, the three main planets, so the sun, moon, and rising for us, just like to give us a bit more of a broader overview, of what people can then look into first?
So in popular astrology, people call this your big three. It's basically the position of the sun in the sky when you were born, the position of the moon in the sky when you were born, and whatever constellation was on the eastern horizon at the time of your birth, which will indicate your ascendant or your rising sign, as some people call it. Now, these are kind of the fundamental aspects of our core personality. And with the sun, this represents the kind of inherent template or job that we came into this life to execute and operate through. So if you were born in the sign of Sagittarius, it is about creating freedom and expanding horizons. It's about being outgoing and excessive and fiery and living this philosophical, exploratory life in whatever form that shows up for you. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a pilgrim doing these big travels. You know, some people can explore that just as much on the internet or in books as they do in the outside world. So it's just about this philosophical, expansive, scholarly kind of energy. Now, that means that no matter how this is applied in your life, as I said, all people born in the sun sign of Sagittarius are operating from that same template with the very same job. Just like if you were born under the sign of Taurus, like I was, it means I came here to create security and stability and to be a rock for people. And that's going to take a whole bunch of different forms depending on who you are and what you're applying it to. But that's the core role of the bull, is to create security, stability, routine, and strength, to embrace simplicity and to see the benefits and productivity of that over a period of time. Now, the moon sign represents our emotional body. It represents the templates in which we feel, the templates in how we react to things. It represents what our experience is like in our inner world. So the sign that your moon is in is going to indicate what sort of nuances or themes you experience emotion through. That
So
means
so my moon is in Capricorn. So how would you describe that? To give an example of like, as your emotional body and it's in Capricorn, how would that be present in ourselves and the world around us, like to others?
the general attributes of Capricorn are going to be very hardworking, stoic, somewhat serious to a certain extent, but also on this deep level to raise the bar and to explore the depths. So when you have your emotional body in Capricorn, that means that you tend to respond to emotional input with a sort of like a stoic composure, that you're willing to want to work through things, you have an ability to endure emotional experiences, and you tend not to show your hand too quickly on things, because it's very important for you that you maintain composure, and that you work through things in your own pace in order to really be able to sustain the heights of your own feelings and the depths of your own feelings. Now, that is also under the polarity of Earth, so you have maybe more of a grounded approach to your feelings. Whereas if someone was in the opposite sign, let's say their moon was in Cancer, then they're exploring the world through this depth of sensitivity and empathy and emotion. They might be very quick to express their feelings, very quick to cry, very quick to laugh, very quick to anger. It's not so much about the stoic nature of the work, it's more about the depth of the experience and the ability to really absorb and flow through those experiences. So someone with the energy of water is going to experience emotions with a lot more flow, a lot more depth. Someone with this emotional template of Earth is going to have a lot more composure and maybe move through things a little bit more slowly. And this is just kind of generalizing, but this is how I see the influence of the signs, their elemental attributes, as being fundamental to the way that that planet's expressed. In this case, how we experience emotion.
Wow. Yes. Thank you for giving those examples. It's really nice to have that kind of comparison. And then we can like explore ourselves, what we are, and also the element is so important as well. So thank you for bringing that up. And so then there's the rising.
So the rising sign being the position in which the sun would be rising at the time of our birth, like where is that eastern horizon? That's the horizon that we are reaching for in this life. You know, we're all expanding into new horizons. And the rising sign represents the kind of the growth that our soul came here to work on in this life. And it also represents our first impressions. It's kind of the thing that people see in us when they first meet us. And that's a very interesting thing, because that means that the way that you inherently are with your sun, the way that you feel with your moon, might not be the first impression people get from you. And that means that there is a multitude of different energies that are contributing to the way people experience you before they get to know you and as they get to know you. So with the rising, this is where we're starting to see what we are rising into or growing into. For example, my rising being in the sign of Libra.
Me too.
There we go. It's all about creating balance, right? That's what we're growing into, is finding harmony and balance within ourselves. But on the contrast of that, people see us as very charismatic and bubbly, creative. They see us as very social, and they see us as someone who's naturally able to bring balance to things. So I feel like there's a poetic irony in the idea that the thing we are growing into, and you know, the horizons we are expanding towards, is essentially what we already are and the way that people already see us. And that means that it is more than achievable. It's already there. It just needs to be uncovered.
Yes. It's so true. And I think, you know, I have with that, the challenges have been huge for me to kind of, it comes with that, with learning the astrology, it really helps to, you know, like I've felt judged through, I think, being seen a certain way and then thinking, oh, but I am like this, so why am I projecting this, or why do people see me like this when I feel like this or know this, and it's like that. It's had that challenge for me, kind of, but now astrology's allowed me to just embrace that nature about me, really, and just be like, oh yeah, it might be like airy fairy or whatever I am, but you know, it's up to us what we know and how, you know, how what we think about ourselves and how we love ourselves and how we embrace that. So that's been one of the biggest, I think, for me to learn so far. So thanks for explaining that.
You're welcome.
To give an example for people, so my Sagittarius is in the house of Gemini, right? And this is going a bit deeper into it, but giving that confidence for me to do this podcast and for me to communicate in areas where I was struggling, or, you know, still am. I'm on that road of recovery in this kind of expression of myself, but learning about what Gemini meant in Sagittarius gave me the confidence to go, oh my gosh, my intuition was right. What I am doing and building with Turn Towards Love is like on the right track. And you gave me that confirmation. You were like, well, you're doing it. You're living it. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. It's like the biggest relief for me, Nik. And so it's just, I wanted to like show that to people. So how could you describe that aspect, of like really knowing that you're on the right track, you know? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To people. Yeah.
I think that our soul and our instinct is naturally to move towards ourselves, and it's not always a comfortable process. I mean, we know that not a lot of growth happens in the comfort zone. So there might be some sort of drive or calling within ourself that's propelling us towards something that might not seem entirely clear. And when you are able to talk to someone who's able to give you different perspectives, whether through the lens of astrology or something else, to confirm what your heart kind of knows to be true, but your confidence may be wavering on to some extent, I think that that's a very powerful thing. And that's the power of community. That's the power of partnership. That's the power of intimacy and transparency. So giving the context that you shared, when we're talking about the houses in astrology, this is the area of our life in which those planetary attributes or qualities are going to be expressed most predominantly. And that means that the kind of like free living, outgoing, philosophical self that you are with your Sagittarius is manifesting in the house of Gemini, the area of your life that represents communication. So it's when you are able to create a platform for open, transparent, blunt, philosophical communication that it feels like you're really stepping into this deeper level of your truth. And even though that might not feel like something that you have mastered or always feel comfortable with, it's something that felt like enough of the truth to you that you chose to lean into it. And when you sought out or were willing to receive outside perspective and confirmation, like what I shared with you in your chart, it's a validation of what you already knew to be true and what you pursued in your own heart that ended up having some sort of reinforcement in the grand scheme of things.
Yes, it absolutely did. It gave me that, you know, the confidence to keep going, and just that deeper knowing and ability that I feel like I have within myself, even though it may feel uncomfortable. I always push myself because the comfort zone just isn't my thing. Like I always push myself, but I know that my physical body and my, you know, internal emotional body, it struggles at those points, when I am pushing myself. But like, you know, turning towards love, every single time I come to those moments and go, you know what, you know, I'm going to do this now because I'm not going to let something like fear stop me from doing something I truly want to do and love. And I really want that message to be so powerful for everyone that's listening to this, because I think we we're not becoming our true authentic selves from feeling that lack and limitation because of fear or something derived from it or from the past that keeps us tied down. And it's you know, doing that course really, like you said, reinforced, and like Deborah Silverman says, like that permission slip to really be your true self. And that's how I felt, because that's how I feel. And it's just like, and you gave me that feeling as well in so many different areas. It's just like when I felt like I was being too much, you know, as fire, even though I have loads of earth, I have that core personality as fire. And I felt like I was being too much for people. And it was always Rachael, you know, rolling eyes, or, oh, she's saying this, or she's too loud, or she's too blunt, or she's too honest, or, you know, and then I felt like myself, like, oh, I'm having to quiet down. I'm having to, like, oh, these people are annoyed by me. And it was, you know, so hard to receive that who I am is like either not enough or like too much or whatever. So for anyone out there who feels anything like that, like, you are enough. And that's something, I don't know whether you have a message for people who feel like that right now in this time and are like holding themselves back from being their true selves in every given moment. To let themselves fly.
Well, I think it's beautiful what you said, just to give yourself that permission slip and to know that it doesn't always have to be too much or not enough, but who you are is enough. And I don't feel like being your true self is some plateau that you achieve and stay at forever. I think the concept of being your true self is this constant unfolding evolution, discovery of what it means to express yourself, what it means to pursue your passions, to explore your pain, to live your dreams. And I don't believe that that's a static process. I believe it's something that is constantly involved and evolving. So if I had any sort of greater perspective or permission slip, the only way to truly know who you are is to go out and live it and discover it. It's not something you can be told or learn in a book. It's something you have to witness for yourself. And no one else can define a metric for authenticity other than resonance, which means if you're being yourself, people will resonate with that. If you're not, you probably won't resonate with how you're being. So at the end of the day, being yourself is an art form that's constantly being refined, and it's something that comes with the lived experience of doing what you love and the things that you don't.
Yes. I find that really important as well, and the things that you don't. Ultimately, things that you sacrifice at times. I find the sacrifice of either like a responsibility or something major, especially like you said, help me unfold my expression in ways I didn't know before, or I didn't know I could reach. Like, we kind of, the capacity and the limitation, it's like it gets blown away when we live through experience and learn through those experiences and push our boundaries. And I really love the way you said involved and what was it, involved and evolve. It's exactly that. And I truly live by that principle. And I think if we all did and stepped into, doing what we love and knowing and finding that out as well, it's an adventure. And I think that journey is what's important. I really love that. So thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Well, firstly, can we talk a bit about the Aquarian age? So we're hearing a lot of people talk about how we have come and stepped into the Aquarian age. What is that? And kind of like, when did it start?
So
Yeah.
when we're talking about greater zodiacal ages, these are processes that involve thousands of years, and the specific threshold of them is a bit nuanced. I mean, anything that is thousands of years long isn't exactly going to have an overnight um, influence. But what we did enter into is the Aquarian generation, when the planet Pluto, which represents our transformational influences, our unconscious mind, and it does in some ways mark generations. It moved into the sign of Aquarius in November of 2024. And it had been ping ponging a little bit back and forth throughout the year, but once we got past November of 2024, we were fully in it. Now, as we came into this Aquarian generation, it became a lot about independence and humanitarianism, basically to say that we are all individuals living in communities together. Our individuality is just as important as our ability to co-create and build things with one another. But Aquarius also has this energy of revolution, of innovation, of basically doing things in new ways that may seem unorthodox to tradition or to the previous status quo. So this generation that started in 2024 is going to be lasting all the way until 2044. This is a long generation, and it'll be another 248 years or so until it comes full circle back to Pluto and Aquarius. So this is a generation that hasn't happened in over 200 years and will continue to be evolving for basically the better part of the next 20 years. That is all to say that as we've come into this Aquarius generation, people may call it this Aquarian age, as we're kind of stepping into this greater zodiacal era, it is very much about sovereignty. It is very much about innovation. It's about breaking the boundaries of what's real, because anything is possible. Technology is becoming infinite. Knowledge and our access to information is becoming so greatly expanded. I mean, you don't have to find a library that has books that spend hours to read in order to gain information anymore. Everything is at the drop of a hat. Everything is instantaneous. So this Aquarian generation, this Aquarian era is bringing us into this futuristic age of technology, but it's also bringing us into an age of true independence and uniqueness when everyone is really becoming their own avatar. We're not all dressed the same anymore. We don't all act the same anymore. The lines are being blurred in all directions. So with this Aquarian age, to me, it really represents an age of innovation, individuality, humanitarianism, but especially community. How do we all work alongside each other, being our own independent people, having our own independent processes, and pursuing our own dreams in unison with one another? Because when we can all live as individuals, we can all be accountable for ourselves. And if we're all accountable for ourselves, we have a lot more to influence and contribute to one another. So I call this the age of community, because that's what it's really about, is moving away from institutions and into community orientation.
Wow. And that's Aquarius in its essence as well, like the beauty of that. And I see how everything that you just mentioned is already taking place and is moving at rapid speed, like AI, or even the humanitarianism to help, and the care and the compassion is coming forward, and people are, I feel like, yeah, it's like a sudden change. Would that affect someone personally?
Well, it really does depend on where the geometry
Where?
lands in their chart. But basically, this is to say that Pluto represents the evolution, mutation of ourselves. It also represents the unconscious mind. So regardless of how it's affecting you personally as far as geometry goes, our unconscious mind is generally being geared towards now transforming towards our independence and our individuality so that we have something to contribute to the community. I mean, everyone in the community can't be doing the same job or it's not going to work. We can't have every single person in the community be a bricklayer and still have the community thrive. We need butchers and bakers and farmers and doctors, and we need everyone to be able to express themselves individually through their skill sets and art forms. And that means that on an unconscious level, we're all trying to discern who we want to be and how we want that to show up. Like, what do we want to contribute based on the authenticity of ourselves? And once we feel like we've kind of identified a version or an aspect of us that we want to contribute, where can we find communities to contribute that towards? So I think
Yeah.
we're all recognizing that there's a need for individuality and innovation, and it's just
Hmm.
subtle in how it affects us all differently.
That's lovely. It's helping people, I guess, to give them that permission to actually go, what am I doing? And am I in an alignment with my work and my life? And does it feel right? Am I happy? Am I, enjoy is it who I am? And if it's not, taking that time to reflect and tune into yourself and to see what it is, the direction that you do want to go in, and then making those steps towards that and knowing that that's okay. I feel
Yeah.
like it's okay to do that.
It doesn't have to last forever. And what I mean when I say that is identity, passion, purpose, it's an ever evolving process. You don't have to decide who you are and then stay that way forever. You discover who you are and you explore that as time goes on.
Yeah.
To me, that's the true expression of authenticity, is continuing to lean more deeply into what your focus and your passion is at this point in who you are, and knowing that all those previous versions of you, even if you were doing something else or expressing yourself in a different way, were all just as valid. So being who you are, discovering your purpose, exploring your passion, it's ever evolving. You don't have to be one person forever.
No, you don't. That's so. I feel like it's such an important message to send to people because we always. I feel like around me as well, people think, well, this is what I do. This is what I've always done. And, there's a fear involved in taking a step out of that because that's what somebody's always known. Or there's excuses, or then there's like, oh, I'm too old, or I'm too this, or I'm too that. And I think that's just us putting limiting beliefs on our own possibilities of the expansion and the creation of our lives and what it could be in that journey. And thank you for really pointing out that it isn't a full stop, that it's continuous and it's a process, and we are a process. And it's not about perfectionism, but it's about those mistakes and those difficulties, those challenges are there for us. They're not against us, they're for us. And we use them wisely enough, we can create that life and the dreams that we really want. And yeah, that may change, and that's okay. So thank you. Well, it's such a lovely message, Nik. So going on from that, so there's an even bigger shifts in the planetary shifts at the moment, because correct me if I'm wrong, but is it all planets are moving from earth and water into fire and air from like 2025, as well as the retrogrades, but then going into it, I think it's April 2026 fully. And that kind of the whole planets and how they're shifting and what that means.
Well, they're not all going into air and fire because Jupiter has gone into the sign of Cancer.
Cancer.
But with that being said, these outer planets represent kind of different layers of our generation. So we just talked about Pluto, that's the broadest generation. And then we go into something like Neptune, right? Neptune is a slightly shorter generation, Uranus is a slightly shorter generation, Saturn is a shorter generation, and Jupiter is a shorter generation.
Yeah.
Spanning all the way from, for example, like we said, this Pluto generation is going to last about 20 years, whereas Jupiter being in Cancer will only last about a year. So we're seeing that there's a wide variety of shifts that are occurring, but what makes this particular part of time significant is that between November and a couple days from now, around the 8th of July, all of these outer planets will have just recently shifted their sign, kind of all within a close proximity to one another. So that means that the Pluto generation is shifting, the Neptune generation is shifting, the Uranus generation is shifting, all in relatively close time frames, which means that not only are we moving into new greater generations, we're having a sort of an unprecedented overhaul all happening really at the same time, more or less. And as you mentioned, there will be retrogrades. We will go into reflection periods. We're already starting some of those now. But basically, what we're going to be seeing by the time we get to May of 2026 is all of these outer planets having fully immersed themselves in these new signs. Some of these for the first time in, 14 years, well, 20 years or 14 years or whatever it may be. So basically what that indicates is that we're all coming into very uncharted waters for humanity. There's a lot of major changes happening at the same time for everybody. And that means that there are no experts here. We are all riding the cutting edge. We are all learning and growing together. It's kind of a great equalizer in a lot of ways. Even if you've been studying the cycles of economy, the cycles of astrology, the cycles of human evolution, you've still never been here before. So I think that we're all on equal playing field coming into these big changes because we're coming into an unprecedented shift in generations and we're all going through it together. So to have all of these outer planets shifting kind of more or less at the same time is significant because you're not just feeling the shift in one fundamental energy, you're feeling the shift in 5 fundamental energies, and how that will affect each person is very different, but guaranteed we are all going to be greatly affected and are already being greatly affected by these changes. And I, for one, am excited about that. I believe progress and change is natural and inevitable, and the more we lean into it, the more we can capitalize on it. It's just if you are choosing to resist changes as they are coming, you're probably going to get flattened by them because we have to adapt, we have to transform, we have to innovate. There's a new world to be created, and we're all laying bricks in that.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for explaining that. I wrote like all of the things that were happening down. I would actually really appreciate if we could like maybe tap into one of those energies, say like Uranus and Gemini, or Jupiter and Cancer is going there, just to give like an example of what that could mean, maybe for the planet or maybe personally, you choose, but like that kind of general shift.
Absolutely. So let's use Uranus going into Gemini because that's happening in the next few days. That's going to happen on the 8th of July. So Uranus is a 7-year cycle. So it's relatively long, but it's quite a bit shorter than something like Neptune or Pluto. It makes it a little bit more digestible for the audience. Now, Uranus represents innovation. It represents technology. It represents eccentricity. During this last period where it was traversing the sign of Taurus, we were innovating the foundations of our life, the foundations of our comfort, the foundations of our routines. That is basically to say that the core foundation of how we create security in our life was going through some overhauls. There was big changes in regards to how we create security, how we establish routine, how we embrace the simple pleasures and engage with our senses. It's getting a bit of an upgrade. Now, the difference is once it shifts into Gemini, Gemini is not about the foundation of all of our comforts and habits. Gemini is all about our communication. It's about our ability to be adaptive. It's about our ability to be self-taught. It's about our ability to really interact with our immediate environment in a very tactile way and to be able to express ourselves through the interactions that we're having. So as Uranus goes into Gemini, we're going to feel the pace really pick up on things. Air moves much faster than Earth. And what we're also going to be seeing is how communication starts to change, about how innovation starts to change, people starting to adapt things in new ways. And I think that this is something that's going to bring a great air of progress, because now that we've figured out how to create new ways of establishing our foundation, now we can start creating new ways to expand on that, to interact with each other, and to communicate the changes we've created.
Oh, wow. I really like the way you've described that. We've set the foundations, and then we work from there on this next energy, because yeah, I really love the way you've brought that together. And I definitely feel like that in so many areas of my life. And I feel the Uranus energy and its direct approach of like clearing out a lot of things that are in the way that no longer serve, I guess, already. So definitely feeling that. So thanks for explaining that. So do you feel like it's like basically going to be a huge reset? And do you feel like that is going to have an impact on the planet Earth itself?
Maybe I wouldn't necessarily call it a reset, but I would probably call it a new beginning, with all of these outer planets being in their very earliest degrees. This is the time for the inception of new dreams, new possibilities. This is an opportunity for us to embrace innovation and transformation. And I feel like with that, we've all got equal stake to the claim here. In other words, that is to say that we are all at an equal playing field to create new possibilities and embrace new beginnings and to reinvent the way that the world operates. Now, this is going to be happening whether we choose it or not. So I believe that we all have the personal free will and sovereignty to choose in our own life, in our own heart, what we want this new world and these new dreams to look like, and to take decided action towards that within our own daily life, because we all do have free will and our actions do create the cause and effect of change. So remember that it's not about just waiting to see how the world changes for you. It's about actively engaging in how to change the world through you.
Gosh, it's incredible. I feel like you need a mic drop. So would you say, so there's so many natural disasters happening right now. Do you think that's a part of it?
I believe so. I also think it's a kind of a product of humans being sedentary. For a long period of time, we were somewhat nomadic. It's only been maybe in the last few thousand years that we've created things that are meant to be sedentary and permanent. And even a lot of those ancient civilizations had to abandon ship at a certain point. We have these ancient temples and monoliths that were quote unquote abandoned. So I think that these natural disasters are a big part of the change, the shifts of the energy, the changes going on in the earth, like literally physiologically. But I also think it's an opportunity for us to realize that things that we thought were permanent maybe are not so, and that there is an opportunity for movement and change. And natural disasters are, as the word entails, natural. So it's an opportunity for us to come together, to innovate, to reestablish, create new technologies. But even beyond that, nothing brings people together like calamity. When calamity strikes, it's an opportunity to support one another, and that's another emphasis on community.
Yes, absolutely. Interesting thought, actually, from you just saying that. So it was the Pisces age, was it? We're coming from.
Yes, we're coming out of it. We're still in the threshold.
In the threshold of that. And as you mentioned, ancient civilizations had to abandon ship at some point. no matter, I guess, how well that was working, shifts always need to take place because things always need to evolve. And what would you say because everything leaves something behind as a reminder, as a token, as a, I guess, there's always an aspect of love, an aspect of fear, an aspect of something left behind. What do you feel like we've left behind in the Pisces age, or we will be, or,
To my knowledge, I believe we left behind the concept of reward and punishment, that we are rewarded for certain things and punished for others, being smited for, actions that maybe were less moral or aligned. I believe that in the Aquarian age, it's a lot less based on reward and punishment and a lot more rooted in cause and effect, that all actions have consequences, and everything that we do will create some greater ripple or effect. So rather than feeling like you are being rewarded for what we would say is positive, or punished for what we would say is negative, that's applying a very human element to things, when really in the grand scheme everything is just cause and effect. Like people who are coding a computer, if this then this, right? That's how
right?
things are coded. And I believe that that's what's happening to us on a greater level. We're seeing that certain actions that we or others have taken have effects, and then we have to respond to those effects and take action to create different effects. I believe this takes away a lot of the polarity of positive and negative out of things, and instead gives us sort of an air of accountability to just being conscious and aware that the things we do leave a footprint, as you said, and
Yeah.
that time doesn't really move, but we do, and nature does, and the planets do. So anything will leave a footprint, but it's just
Yeah.
about considering what sort of a footprint you want to leave with your actions.
What footprint do you want to leave with your actions?
I would like to leave some element of kindness and positivity, progress. I mean, I don't necessarily need to know what it looks like or how it shows up, but I would like to believe that my existence in this world has made some sort of impact that helps people. And maybe that is me looking to more of a positive or negative, but at the end of the day, I just want to know that I had an impact on the world in a way that could be constructive. Um,
Yeah.
Maybe more than having an impact that would be considered destructive.
Wow. Say that last bit again. Maybe more than having an impact would be deconstructive.
I would rather my footprint on this world be one that is considered largely
Oh,
constructive,
constructive.
rather than feel like my actions in this world were destructive.
I see what you mean. Oh, yes. What a word. Especially for now. um, and there's an element of that destruction that is, like we've talked about, super necessary. For it's kind of like that tower moment, that moment to evolve needs that collapse. So do you feel the times at the moment for people like who are really struggling at the moment, really lost in terms of their direction and their focus, and I feel like even within myself it can be fluctuating and confusing at times, and luckily I have grounded practices to stabilize me in my chaos, like, as I know I'm going to be very chaos and all over the place being a Sag, but like but for people like who feel that huge impact as well going on in the world, what message would you give to them, regarding regarding the energies that are happening at the moment?
Well, first, just to realize everything is energy, and
Yes.
that chaos and order are natural polarities that exist already in this world. That is to say, there are elements of deconstruction that need to occur in order for new construction to occur. And with that being said, I would also emphasize that joy and pain are built of the same blocks. It's just how they are constructed that elicits the experience of them. So people that are experiencing chaos, people that are experiencing order, people that are trying to bring one to the other, that's the natural polarities that exist in this realm. And it's important to embrace them both, because
Yes.
chaos provides change and mutation. Order is an ability to create some consistency and implementation of these changes or mutations. So we need chaos just as much as we need order. One without the other would create stagnation.
Gosh, yes, exactly. And I feel like that's so important to be aware of in our own lives, on maybe our past, where I find forgiveness is huge. Do you think where there's forgiveness, there's judgment?
Or even just
Or is it?
change your perspective,
That's it.
change your judgment.
That's it. So I feel like there's a lot of that kind of energy at the moment that I'm noticing around. And so I find that, picking through those specific thoughts, then we're able to kind of acknowledge the source of the problem, where it's actually originally coming from. And I find that, guided with astrology as well, I've been able to do that more so. It's given me like that acceptance of, even though I felt acceptance before, it's given me that reinforcement of that acceptance. Have you experienced anything like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Through multiple lenses and experiences in my life, but astrology specifically was a permission slip to recognize that there are parts of myself that are inherent that I maybe rebelled against a little bit or judged. And it was only when I saw them in action, or the lack of them being present, that I started to appreciate the foundation of what I was and why I may have chose these things. So I think that in judging something, it's an opportunity to create a new perspective and to have a lived experience in order to do that. And in having had the lived experience of something, it helps you to change your judgment based on the new perspectives you've gained about yourself.
Oh, yes. So it's that internal work that eventually changes our external perspective.
We are the common denominator between everything that's happening to and for us. It's all us.
It's all us. So all we need to do is change perspective.
It can help.
Change perspective, everyone. Turn towards love. Okay. I'm switching. So actually, we did briefly touch on this earlier. But could we talk about, please, the elements, and what they mean?
Well, elements are fundamental to nature. Fire, earth, air, water. These are kind of the basic building blocks of earth, and the forces of nature as they interplay with one another. And these same forces of nature interplay within us, and the astrological wheel has certain affinities with each of these elements. So there are 3 different flavors of fire, 3 different flavors of air, earth, and water. And basically what that's representing is the sort of elemental attribute or qualities that these signs express themselves through. So talking about something like a fire sign, this is going to be very passionate, very energized, something that's burning bright and hot, and ultimately has this energy of light. It's very much about creating this burn, about this light. Then we would go into something like earth. It's very much about being practical, grounded. It's about being composed. It's about the more tangible aspects of life, the organization, the money, the structures of things. That energy is all about consistency and stability. So let's
Yeah.
go into air then. So we've talked about fire, this passion, this energy. We've talked about earth, this stability and groundedness. Then air is all about intellect and communication. It's a lot more dynamic, it's a lot more versatile. Air energy is all about like movement and the ability to interface with everything. That's a big part of how I believe that air works. And the next one, being, I guess, the last element of this list, is water. Water is all about emotion, it's all about depth, it's about dreams, it's about feeling, it's about, the core aspect of what makes us human is the depth in which we experience things, how we feel, how things affect us. So water is really all about the energy of feeling. It's all about the emotional and lived experience of things. And it's all about embracing the depth of those experiences in who we are.
Thank you. Thanks for explaining that. I guess. Yeah, is there anything else that you'd like to mention? Anything else that you think is really important to cover through astrology? Or at this moment?
This might seem counterintuitive, but I guess if I had any kind of final note, it's that astrology is meant to be explored. It's not meant to be something that dictates us. So don't live your life based around your astrology. Live your astrology based around your life and come up with your own experiences and interpretations of what these energies mean and how they manifest to you. At the end of the day, I believe that we're ultimately meant to be ourselves, and astrology is a way to help understand maybe certain nuances of that. But at the end of the day, you know you better than anyone, and it's in the authentic experience of that that it really unfolds most deeply.
That's beautiful. And so, with that ever evolving concept, where do you think astrology would be in the next 10 or 20 years? Do you think that will evolve and change?
I believe that considering the lifespan that astrology's had, that it will continue to go on as long as we do, regardless
Yeah.
of the way that we interpret it. We've always been sitting underneath the stars. We've always recognized them as a map, as a waypoint, or as an opportunity to create understanding and direction. So I believe that rather we use the stars to navigate or we use the stars to understand ourselves, that they're always going to be an influence on us because we're a part of them too.
We are. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Hope you've enjoyed this incredible conversation, and thank you, Nik, for being on this show. I hope to have you back another time. But yeah, I appreciate you and everything that you bring to this planet and to everyone in all of your classes, because you've impacted my life greatly. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Rachel, for having me on, for involving me in this conversation, and I'll definitely be back. You just let me know.
Okay. Hello everyone, it's Rachael Iris here. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this episode, and be sure to check out all the details from the guest of this show down in the description box below. You will find all you need to know in there. And if you haven't already, I would be so truly grateful if you could like and subscribe and comment. Tell me how you feel. Tell me what you'd like to see more of on Turn Towards Love. And yes, I would just so love for us all to become a lovely family so we can turn towards love together in difficult times. So From my heart to yours, all my love.